First of all, I'd like to thank RRSA for inviting me here today. It's very kind of them. I've never done this. Well, I haven't done it like this before, but I have certainly spoken about fundraising, which is my passion, and they've asked me to talk about sustainability. Sustainability and fundraising are two pieces of the same pie, very, very close to each other, and I think most of you in this room will understand that. So it's a $1 million word, a million rand word. Sustainability, what does that mean to us here? It's become one of the most demanding and challenging tasks on the planet. Running and sustaining an NGO, it's almost impossible. There are literally hundreds of registered animal charities with the Department of Social Development in South Africa. Hands up anyone who is not registered. Okay? You must look at that, think about it. It's a good idea to get registered. It just gives your organization a little bit more credibility. There are many unregistered splinter and new startup groups, but somebody's got to start somewhere. It means, however, that the donor rand is being split just that many times more, which is not a bad thing, because if you look at the size of South Africa, we need welfares. We need to have these organizations there in the first place. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at. The whole question of sustainability ties into the whole question of the need. South Africa, sadly, has a shocking track record for animal welfare. You travel into the rural areas, you will be appalled. Okay, the Eastern Cape is particularly bad. I don't even want to go Northern Cape, because that can also be pretty horrific as well. But you visit the local city shelters, city organizations, and you know what? You get inspired. You'll be inspired. You go to some of the smaller groups, you'll be inspired. You go to the bigger groups, you'll also be inspired. You'll be energized. So there are some critical questions that need to be asked when you're setting up an animal welfare NGO. These are questions that you would ask regardless of what kind of NGO you're setting up. It is what is done when you're setting up an NGO, be it for suffering children, for paraplegics, for people with some kind of a disease. And the first question, which is the button that I have to press here, sweetie? The one on the right. No, back. There we go. There we go. That's it. That's it. The first question is why?
It's out of sync. There we go.
Oh, okay. Out of sync. If you're about to set up an NGO, or you have one already in existence, but maybe you're struggling with it a little bit, you need to ask yourself, why? Why are you in existence in the first place? And make sure you have a very strong argument for why this organization is needed. A sustainable animal welfare NGO is an organization that plans ahead and has a strong reason for being there in the first place. The next question is what? What is your mandate? What exactly is it that you exist for? What is your vision? Where do you see yourselves being successful in the animal welfare sector? And what part of the animal welfare sector do you want to address? Analyze it and understand whether or not what you intend to do as an NGO is actually needed, really needed in the first place. Also ask yourself, would you not be better served by joining an existing NGO, an existing framework, and an existing mandate with another existing organization that has a cause close to your heart? Perhaps you have the skills and the experience that could benefit an existing NGO and save everyone, including yourself, the drama of starting yet another NGO. Perhaps you want to put two small NGOs together and pool your resources. Perhaps, for example, you think that there should be more sterilization campaigns. Well, I would back that 100%. But instead of starting yet another NGO, why not raise funds and engage with the existing NGOs who are successfully carrying out campaigns all the time and have the resources? Help them to run a sterilization campaign. And the beauty of doing it that way is that when you've done the campaign and you've achieved your 70% sterilization rate, you can then sit back and rest, and you've done your job. Rest get your strength back, then go back into the community and say, what else needs to be done? Do I need to continue another spay campaign? Is there a camp or another community next door where perhaps I should do another campaign? Then go out, raise the funds, then go to the existing NGO that has the resources, the hospital, the vets, the vehicles, etc. Set up a timeline with them, go in, do the campaign, then leave and rest. Do your research very carefully. Use the internet. Ask those who know. Ask the people who've done it and been there. And make sure you know what your intention is. Make sure that you're not duplicating either the name or the work of an existing NGO. It causes confusion and probably hostility. It will also cause hostility with your donors. To sustain anything, you need the support of like-minded people. Surround yourself with people who can help you and who you can trust. Trust has to be the number one tool that we all need to develop in order to keep stability within an NGO's daily operations. The other key is continuity. No donor will support you if you're having constant staff changes and instability. Donors need to see stability within your board and your committee. So if they see you squabbling on social media, for example, which does happen, be sure that you're going to lose your reputation and damage your reputation. You're going to lose support. People don't want to see it. It mustn't happen. Any dodgy comment on social media equates to 10,000 steps backwards. Donors become annoyed easily when they see NGOs not getting along. There doesn't have to be a fight. If you're not helping each other and watching each other's backs, donors get irritated. And they will move on to an NGO that has the stability and the sustainability that they want to put their money into. That's just fact. They become annoyed also when they see work being done in a wasteful fashion, which is why I said earlier, is it necessary to go through the whole thing of starting another NGO when you could actually raise the funds, pool your resources, and work alongside someone in the area? It doesn't always work that way because there are definitely areas in this country that don't have any infrastructure and they need smaller groups to get in there and do the work. The key here is don't grandstand, don't become arrogant, and don't make claims that you cannot keep. That is also a key to sustainability. How? Any NGO must have a strong financial plan. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you have no money, you will not be able to do any work at all. Your fundraising plan in this regard is your key to sustainability. I know Jessica Perrins was up here earlier giving a speech, and I hope that helps you. Use her guidelines to help you build a fundraising plan and stick to it, but make it yours. Own your own fundraising plan. Your entire existence depends on your ability to develop a strong income budget together with a fundraising and communication program which is not only sustainable but achievable in the first place. Don't reach for the stars if you're going to fall flat on your face. Rather take baby steps. Do it slowly, do it carefully, and get where you want to be long term. So you're not going all in now, bang, 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 and then crash, and we never see you again. If your mandate is to build shelters for unwanted pets at a cost of 7 million rand per shelter, it is advisable to have a clear and realistic plan as to why this is needed and where this money will come from. And not only that, how will the shelter sustain itself once the builders have left? Be very careful before you say you want to build a hospital as well. They're very, very, very expensive. Shelters are not easily funded. It is generally felt that shelters can become bottomless pits and unfortunately often lose out on donations. So that is also just a donor fact. People do give. They want to see shelters succeed and survive and help animals. I'm not saying they don't want to do that, but you keep putting money in, and there just never is a solution. So it would be a good idea, therefore, to tack another activity onto your shelter which deals with the root cause of the problem. So, for example, spay campaigns, vigorous adoption programs, humane education, those are a couple of ideas that you can work on. So you're not just constantly saying feed the animals, feed the animals, feed the animals, feed the, and the donor's going, well, hang on a minute, what are you actually doing to address the problem? Everyone running an animal charity is dealing with a problem of some sort. That is where the whole thing starts. There is a problem. We're all in there trying to deal with unwanted pets, disease, cruelty, abandonment, overpopulation, and we're all sitting under this terrible weight every single day of our lives. Much of the sustainability question is about your internal structures, your fundraising program, as I've mentioned before. So some of the questions that you might want to consider are, who is your donor base and how big is your donor base? Do you have 500 people supporting you or do you have 25 people supporting you? Sit down and make a list of everyone. Start at the top, A, go through to Z, then go to corporate, then go to trust funds, then go to who's on Facebook, who's overseas, who's around the corner, who's my neighbor, who's my family? Are these people supporting me? Are they going to continue to support you? The continuation of your donors' ability to support you is your sustainability key. Do the donations you're getting cover your core funding needs? In other words, your salaries. What are your salaries? Your vet bills, your vehicles, your building, your UIF, your whatever, your drug account, all of that stuff. Sit down, make a list, work out. Well, I've got 10 donors and they're giving me 5,000 Rand a month. I can bank on it, it's a debit order. Or my core funding needs are 25,000 Rand a month and I'm only getting 5,000 Rand in. Now you've got a problem. First raise the funds, then carry out the projects. But don't lose sight of the projects. It's a difficult one. Who's developing your donor base? Are you adding new donors or are you losing donors? What are you doing to engage with your donor? How often are you contacting them? Are you contacting them once a year with a big fat, please give me money? Or are you constantly keeping them updated with what your plan is, where you're going, what you're doing, what your successes have been, and what your failures have been? Because it's also good sometimes to admit that you didn't quite get it right. Reporting to a management structure is critical. There has to be a distinct line of authority. Those in charge need to communicate effectively on a daily and weekly basis. There is no point in having an NGO full of staff who are fiddling around and carrying out systems which are not sustainable or they're cost heavy. Make sure that each member of staff has a full day and is 100% engaged with your mandate. Do they have free time? Could they perhaps do a half-day contract as opposed to a full-day contract? Do you need to appoint more staff as your operations grow? Or do you need to actually consolidate and make it smaller? These are all questions that you have to organize amongst yourselves for your NGO with your board. There is no one solution to the problem of staff and how you use them. But what you can do is cut back on unnecessary trips and vehicles. Spread the load amongst other people. Use different people, or even better, call on volunteers. Work smarter, not harder. Be savvy about what your weekly and monthly needs in terms of operations and staff movements are. Monitor your staff, praise good work. Use the labour law. Make sure you're working to the parameters of the law on everything you do. And don't shortcut on that. Make sure you cover yourself. Reward good outcomes, even if it's for yourself. Even if you are the only member of staff or you are the only volunteer in your own NGO, reward yourself. When you've done good, reward yourself. Spa day. Spa days are good. Facials are also good. But just make sure that you are working smarter and not harder. Much of the knowledge that I'm talking about is on the internet. So the best thing I can say is read, read, read. Keep a whiteboard in the office which everyone can see if there's a few of you, or refer to and use it. Use it as a diary for a 2-week period and work out who does what, when, what day, what time. And do that religiously. Don't skip on that because communication is key. to any sustainable activity. Get systems and get organized. Stick to systems that work. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. If you're disorganized, you will find that you're likely to burn out, chasing your tail, pardon the pun, and will not thrive. Stress and anxiety will creep in, and you will not thrive. Be aware of what works, and keep using that strategy. Panic fundraising, and believe me, it happens, and it goes on all the time. I hear this often. We've run out of food. Help, the dogs are going to starve. We're going to close down. All this kind of panic stuff. You know what? This kind of shock asking for support is not sustainable. It doesn't work. It seems like a good idea at the time, and maybe it will bring in some money, but it's not sustainable. Shock images and horror stories get money, but you will end up with a negative donor response long term. So it'll work today, it's not going to work in 6 months' time or in a year's time. People are watching you. If you're calling yourselves the whatever, animal rescue, whatever, da-da-da-da, they want to know what you're doing. They want to know that you're in control. They want to know that you have a plan. You must develop a program to cope with the shocking cases. And not only that you're simply reactive and running to Facebook and Twitter every time there's a problem, but that you have a solution to the problem. Bring in the good and the bad. Make use of both in one story and try to offer as a solution and not just a problem. Use social media wisely. You have no idea how one snide comment can damage your good name, as I said earlier. Use social media to rehome animals. It works. It really does. Thank God for Facebook. Obviously, you know to use social media in such a way that you do your home checks and make sure that everything is in line before you just rush off to rehome that animal to that lady because she sounded nice on Facebook. Again, telling the public that you're about to close down because there's no money shows you that your board, whoever they are, is in crisis. And that results in a negative response. That doesn't build long-term confidence in your NGO, and donors are less likely to donate to you on a sustainable basis. You will suffer the effect of a negative public perception, no matter what good work you're doing for animals. Effectively, long-term, you won't achieve what you want to achieve. If you're known as a sustainable entity, they will give you cash. They will help you. They will. Show the shocking pictures, but do so in a strategic way. Show that you have a plan to help the animals, and here is the problem, but here is a solution too. Don't shout at your public for support. Pleading and begging is very unattractive. It does nothing for confidence, and that's what you want to do. You want to build confidence, you want to build a long-term plan, you want to show that you're in control of the situation, and yes, you aren't on top of it because who can save all the animals all at once and forever, amen, but long-term, we will do our damnedest to fix this. Set your income budget and work out ways and means of achieving your income. Only you can do that. And never become aggressive. It just doesn't work. Another one that I've seen on Facebook is saying, if all our Facebook followers give us 10 Rand, that will sort us out for the next 6 months. Well, then what happens after that? And second to that, your Facebook followers are not all going to give you 10 Rand. It's not going to happen. So don't waste your time thinking that you can go that route. It's not going to work. Use your Facebook followers, entice them in, tell them what you're doing, show them that it's a good idea to support your work, that you have a plan. No, you don't have all the answers, but work with us. We're getting there. Show the success stories. Show the shocking pictures as well. Show the shocking pictures. The public need to know what this is. They need to know that we have to sit and look at this. Why shouldn't they? They're sending you money to fix this. Well, look at this and tell us what you think we should do to solve the problem. Maybe they can get some of their friends together and give 100 Rand each or 10 Rand each or piles of dog food or whatever it is that they can do to support. It's about getting support. People are what makes or breaks an NGO. Not a whole lot of suffering animals. We are there because of them, but we are the ones that have to drive the NGO that gets to them. There is no golden money tap that you can turn on, sadly, sorry. Money is what people are not giving away right now. Sorry, I'm being very negative. Fundraising is actually friend raising. So what you're trying to do through fundraising is build a network of friends, and you're trying to bring them in to support you. That's what you're trying to do. Building relationships is crucial to survival. Do not think that by employing a fundraiser that the funds will pour in. It does not work that way. It simply does not. Possibly in politics it does, because they have a different setup altogether. It doesn't work that way in animal welfare. What you've got to do is develop a network of friends. Sometimes the best fundraisers are those who started the NGO in the first place. They are the ones that hold the objectives of that NGO very close to their heart. They are the ones that have the mission. They started the NGO in the first place. They're driven by it. Then what sometimes happens is the founding member takes a back seat and the other people come in and run it. That's if it's successful. Otherwise, it kind of limps along and doesn't really do anything, and nobody ever really hears from you. And either it closes down and stops working, or on the positive side, it actually flourishes and it goes forward, it thrives, it raises money, and does good work. That's what we like to see. Fundraisers need space and time. They cannot be clocked in and out and told to keep office hours. I can vouch for this personally. I have lived through many board members who tried to clip my wings and tie me down, only to realize that my best fundraising and friend raising goes on after 5 o'clock and over weekends. Fundraising is not an administrative job, and if you try to turn it into one, you're going to fail. Fundraising is a creative process. It takes years to get it right. Support your fundraiser, whoever that is, but also know when to call in for results. You want to see results. You want to see the results of gatherings, functions, events, Facebook posts, letters, corporate letters, foundations, trust funds. You want to see. But give her a chance, or him a chance, to get there. It takes at least 18 months from startup to see some kind of a feedback on fundraising. It doesn't happen in a week. It doesn't happen in 2 weeks. It can take a very, very long time. And you've got to work through that. And every little bit of success, you just clock it up. You just keep on going. 1 foot. That's why I said baby steps work. Boards and committees need to know what is going on in your charity. There's no point in having a board or a committee, or people who say that they're on a board or committee and then you never see them, you never hear from them, you don't know what they're doing, they don't know what you're doing. If that's what you've got a problem. So you go back Monday, call them all in and say, right guys, what are your responsibilities? Everyone on your board needs to have a responsibility that they take care of. It's their responsibility to have a book sale once a month. It's their responsibility to pack the dog food cupboard. It's their responsibility to order drugs, whatever it is. Make sure everyone connected to your NGO has a job and sticks to it and is accountable once a month or once every 2 months. When you have your board meetings, they must report back. Coming back to fundraising, who's writing your proposals? What are they sending out? Have these people received any training in writing proposals for fundraising? Who's running your events? Are they worthwhile financially? If you raise 50,000 Rand at a golf day, are you writing off all of that income on the day to the salaries and the money that you paid out to the people that ran the event in the first place? Because that's a complete waste of time. These are issues and situations that only your individual NGOs can address. But it is important that you think out of the box. Work out an annual calendar. Again, only you can do that. Fill out a month-to-month guide of what you intend to do. A sale, a market, a media campaign, a newsletter, whatever it is that works for your NGO. Work it out on a calendar basis and be systematic about it. Your sustainability plan ties in with that. Be realistic. Burnout is very very common in NGOs because everyone's trying to do the work and everyone's trying to raise money and everyone's chasing their tail. People make it happen. Always remember that. If you have a problem getting on with people, maybe you must not do this work. Get on with people. Care about each other. It is crucial to establish collaboration and good communication amongst members of staff in order to strengthen their sense of belonging. Volunteers are a vital resource. I think there's a lot of volunteers here today. How many of you are volunteers? Just about the whole room is volunteers. So I'm talking about staff, but there are those of you who do have staff. Draw on volunteers' personal and professional networks to expand your own NGO. Make good friends with your volunteers and use every part of what they have to offer you. If your NGO's main goal is to build shelters for unwanted pets, then you need to have a solid proof of how this will increase the numbers of animals which are rehomed, and show without a doubt that you're not just rehoming animals in one geographical area at the expense of animals living in a shelter in another geographical area. So if you rehome 500 animals up north, does this mean that the animals in the south are going to be put down? So think very carefully about these questions before you actually get involved with doing the work at the expense of everyone's energy. Shelter life for animals can be awful. We know that. They hate it. High stress levels, almost the minute you close that cage door. Instead of building another shelter, why not build a database of foster homes? Develop a network of homes for dogs and cats. There are many fabulous shelters doing this and working tirelessly to rehome animals, and we have absolute respect for what they do. But the bottom line is, if you want to be sustainable, do not dig yourself into a deep hole by not being able to deliver on what you said you would do. Make sure your admin is 100% in order. Have an audit done. Make your financial statements and audit details public. Keep your operations tight and manageable. A final word of warning. If you're a registered NGO or trust fund and your financial planning is in a mess, it could cause the demise of your organization. Expect to be held accountable legally. The following quote is from a lady called Joanna Moshman, again off the internet. There's so much resource on the internet. That's where you need to go. She's an expert on NGO operations. She says, the board of directors is crucial to an NGO and is responsible for many specific tasks. The board's main task is to govern and oversee the operations of an organization through acting as fiduciaries. In other words, the board is legally, financially, and morally responsible for the organization. Few board members work closely with fundraisers, yet financial stability is unquestionably the responsibility of the board. Not just you, it's your whole board are responsible for what you do in your NGO. And you need to make sure that they're aware of that. In terms of the Department of Social Development, more than 80,000 NPOs are non-compliant. 19% of NPOs' financial statements and narrative reports are verified annually by the Directorate. That is a quote from NGO Pulse. NGO Pulse is also worth Googling. They give a lot of very good information. Check out the internet and read as much as you can about legalities which bind your NGO. Make sure that you are compliant. Make sure your files and your paperwork is in order. Who's in charge of making the financial statements complete? All these issues tie together to make your NGO sustainable and to help you to operate effectively as well. We've covered that one. Finally, I can only wish you luck. It's not easy running any NGO, and animal welfare is not for sissies. We know this. My advice to you, if you plan to be around the animal welfare sector for a meaningful number of years, is to make peace with emotional issues, including the death of animals. So a lot of people struggle with it, they burn out and they leave. It doesn't help anyone. If you are working to a no-kill ethic, you will be facing death all the time in other areas of welfare. Perhaps not in your own organization, but in others you will be facing it. Your sister organizations will be dealing with it, and they need your back. So your support will equate on many levels to sustainability. And that is sustainability not just of your NGO, but sustainability of all of us who are working towards the betterment of lives for animals. Remember why you love animals so much. Keep going back to that. Make time to love an animal every single day. No matter how many reports you have to do, how many trips out into the field you have to do, make sure that you give at least one animal some really good time every single day, because that will sustain you, which will then sustain others. Remember also that we need to work together, support each other. That creates a sustainable world for welfare to operate in. Be prepared to spend many years hard at work. See what needs to be done. Put your differences aside. Strive for that wonderful achievement of relieving the suffering of animals. And that is my presentation to you. PBO, Public Benefit Organisation, I think you can have a Section 18A, you can issue tax certificates for donations, and an NGO, non-government organisation, NPO, non-profit organisation, for me they're much of a muchness. I'm not sure the difference between an NPO and a trust, that's all just registration issues. On it. So just in a nutshell, just very briefly, if I've got 2 minutes to tell you, the next step is that the forum is going to be meeting with City on Wednesday. We will be presenting to the Safety and Security Portfolio Committee our draft revised bylaw, animal bylaw for the City of Cape Town. It should have been revised in 2016, but we're getting on with it now. We are trying our best to engage with them over what is best needed for the animals. The forum have put together a lot of recommendations for that new bylaw. For the rest of us working in the welfare sector, compulsory sterilisation will take care of a lot of our problems.